You read the title. This video is separated into two parts. First talking about one of my newest obsessions, and second about this amazing piece of work feeding into a way bigger problem in the anime industry and community. So let's get started. Anime is so samey. Recently I watched another fanservice heavy show where high school kids fight demon-like enemies with a harem thrown in for good measure. I've seen a lot of anime, but none of them do things like Monogatari. It's most well known for, well, mostly this scene. But outside of heavy-duty degeneracy, what defines Monogatari is its very unique approach to anime, in pretty much every aspect. But before that, what is Monogatari about? Monogatari follows this redditor, Araragi Koyomi, in short episodic arcs, as he battles, or more accurately for the series, solves the apparitions, spirits born from human emotions. The focus placed on the victims of these apparitions and their personal struggles. Obviously for some of you that might sound super lame and pretty generic, but I'm here to prove that it's not. Also for Monogatari fans, this is my reading. I did not watch any Monogatari Explain videos. So if you think I'm wrong with something, tell me in the comments, I'll be sure to read them. They will be nice and civilized, right? Starting off with the dialogue. Yes, it isn't the only anime that focuses heavily on dialogue. But whether it's witty or realistic or punchy, it isn't like Monogatari. You'll realize really quickly this is the yep wheel of anime. Characters explain everything that's happening, monologue their entire personality out into words, go on meaningless tangents and don't forget to be really horny. I don't know what the author, Niso Isin, is doing cause it lacks subtext completely. But that's obviously not true. If it was, it would be forgotten rather quickly. Who would have the patience to watch a show where characters explained exactly what is happening? Ask any fan and they will glaze the dialogue. It's not something I noticed when I first watched it, but without ever realizing it, it really grew on me. Rarely does it pertain to the plot. But that's what makes the dialogue scenes stand out. They feel like the characters are putting on a play, filled with references, fourth wall breaks and wordplay most fans will never understand cause we ain't fluent in Japanese. The characters perfectly play off each other to elevate their performances. It has a rhythm to it. Dialogue scenes can mean nothing or a lot, but it works to make every character insanely personable. But there's still a bit more to it. Every character in this show creates their unsubtle personas that are basically harem tropes and bury you under a mountain of exposition. Expressionless yandere girlfriend, BL obsessed tomboy, the nice and smart girl that appears when the plot needs to be solved. I love you! Wants to bone her brother. These caricatures are how the characters want to be perceived. Why would you... Okay, the show finds its depth in cracking those illusions.
前髪があろうとなかろうといつも通りにいつものようにごめんなさいから切り出してあとはその場の流れでうっせんだよ
Best example of this is Kaiki. He was introduced as a con artist and straight up villain who's after nothing but profit. And he's happy to play that role. He terribly wounded many people, including lots of the main cast, like Senjo Gahara, who is here to ask a favor from Kaiki, despite everything he's done to her. She can't pay much money, so it's basically on his good conscience if he accepts or not.
さて、自問自答だ。戦場ヶ原と荒波のために無償で働いてやる気持ちはあるか？ノーだ、絶対にない。ならば戦国なで子という奇病にかかってしまったらしい娘のためなら。ノーだ、誰だそいつは。知らん。ならば かつて騙した純情な娘である戦場ヶ原に償いをしようという気持ちを元にすればどうだ。ノーだ、そんな気持ちなんてない。その件について俺は何とも思っていない。ダメだ。いくら考えてもこの仕事を受ける理由が見当たらない。ああ、そうだ。ガエン先輩から見て姪に当たる神原駿河は直江津高校の生徒で、しかもかつて戦場ヶ原とは仲が良かったのではなかった。戦国なで子を騙すことが俺にはできるだろうか。イエスだ。
Yes, you can take this at face value and just accept he wants to meet Kanbaru for some reason. But isn't it quite weird he's searching for a reason in the first place? He still is a money-driven conman. If he didn't wanna take it, he would have just refused. He's convincing himself there is some profit to be found in helping our heroes, even when there really isn't.
ああ、でもらしくないというわけでもないのか。2年ほど前だっけ、会期が結構大規模な宗教団体を詐欺に引っ掛けて潰したのって。あなたは大した金にもならないのに、あの子のために潰したんだろ。
ああ、そうそう、その通り。実は俺はとてもいいやつだったんだよ。悪ぶってるだけのやつだったんだ。
This, on the other hand, is obviously too generous for Kaiki. He isn't some knight in shining armor, but he does grow attached to people, and as every human, he does what satisfies him. Whether it's making that bag or helping a girl he hurt for that bag. He wouldn't want to admit it, but that's the real him. While morally dubious, still a very grounded mature man, which really stands out in the immature cast. Often checking the behavior of the dumb kids around him and giving genuine life advice.
創作は恥ずかしいものだし、それに夢も恥ずかしいものだ。それは仕方がない。当たりだが、少なくともそんな風に自分で卑下していいものじゃないんだ。
Though he will act like it's just a part of his job. I won't lie, I covered Kaiki because he's the easiest to explain. But also because if anyone decides to watch Monogatari thanks to this video, I want you to experience the characters on your own. Sometimes you might feel like you know the character through and through. They are pretty good at sticking to their archetype. But suddenly a random scene completely changes your outlook on them. What started off as basically character presets might become some of your favorite characters in all of anime. That's what happened to me, along with some of my favorite scenes. And none of them include you. Next is the presentation. Considering you're basically reading a book with pretty visuals, the visuals must be real good. And oh god, does Monogatari just look magnificent. The team behind Monogatari would not be satisfied with another high school anime, and dressed up the world in style. Who has a bathroom like this? Outside abandoned locations, everything is clean, no imperfections allowed. Trees, lampposts, railings are often depicted in gradients. When they want a particular location to stand out, they fill it with vibrant colors. But all these backgrounds are characterless. You see these parks, living rooms, bedrooms. They all feel corporate, like something meant to be put on display instead of being used and lived in. How fitting for a world stripped of life. Almost never will you see background characters, whether it's in school or in shops or any other place that would normally be filled with people. And in the rare cases someone is present, they will be obscured behind a pattern of some sorts. Even speaking roles can be stripped of personality. If a character isn't well defined enough, their faces will be obscured, placed out of sight or draped in shadow. Thanks to that, the cast is placed outside of this world. We know that there is the world of Monogatari, but our characters don't fit into it. They are visually outcasted from their setting. No, that's wrong. They aren't outcasted. They are ignoring the real world. This I concluded thanks to the apparitions. They heavily vary visually. Some are obscured, while others are depicted as fully fleshed, and there even is an example of one that doesn't even have a form. As I said, apparitions are born and gain their strength from feelings. Stories passed on, traumas experienced, needs that weren't fulfilled. and suddenly the appearances make sense. The lost cow is a type of spirit that fools people into following them and leads them astray. They possess a human form as they once were human, and anyone following them would be someone who wants to help the spirit in some way, thus humanizing it further and forming connections with its victims. The crab is a god that takes away burdens, meaning emotions, but along with it the weight of the victim. As it isn't an apparition we emotionally connect to, its form is obscure. The formless apparition doesn't even exist. A dude spouted bullshit so effectively it created an apparition. But as the apparition has no basis beyond this one dude who engineered it into existence, with no real emotion put into it, the form didn't manifest. The more connected people feel to the apparition, the realer it looks. And the same goes for the humans. Friends and enemies are depicted in their full glory. People you have some connections to but don't really give a damn, like a mother of a friend or a shitty teacher. Yeah, no face for you, Stinky. People in close vicinity like classmates you don't talk to. Yeah, feel bad for them, dude. And the city has either died out in an apocalypse or the passerbys on the street just don't get anything. Well, sometimes they get this silly, dude. Everything about this show informs us about the characters. Even this stuff. The color screens you've seen throughout this video that undoubtedly killed at least 7 epileptics by this point. These are in the show, containing explanations, environmental context, slightly rephrased sentences that were just told, and inner thoughts of the characters. All these provide us with a deeper view of how the characters think. Also, they aren't really required to read, nothing truly important is there, but if you're like me and pretty much everyone else who watch this show, you'll get a fun QuickTime event. Shit. Why is it so... Fuck. And there's a lot more to it. I only analyze the look of the show when it doesn't do whatever it wants, which is very often. The show would be already praised if it was just what I talked about. But the team went above and beyond. Everything we talked about is neat, but that's just the support. What's sitting atop is the most important. I feel episodic storytelling is getting really dismissed nowadays. We often want to see sprawling stories that give you an emotional and gripping journey. Nothing proves that more than the absolute darling of modern anime. But I feel short, self-contained stories is something we really lack in the modern day. Cowboy Bebop is the classic and it has so much going for it. But my favorite aspect is how you can't be sure where the story takes you next. Spike having a dick measuring contest with a cowboy. Old leftover food coming alive. Confronting old enemies in an old and dark abandoned cathedral. Exploring the ruined earth. Fucking mushrooms. It keeps you on your toes. But Cowboy Bebop is a lot more loose than Monogatari and also a truly episodic show. It throws you into this sprawling space western, from the vast scorching deserts to narrow alleys on a frozen planet. In comparison, Monogatari takes a few eps to tell one story. In this quiet town in Japan, one of the girls gets involved with some kind of apparition, and with help from another characters, usually are Shirigma male, has to solve the mystery while tackling their inner problems. This is a really rigid template, but Niso Isin finds a lot of wiggle room. No two apparitions are the same, the show constantly plays with your expectations. The different stories keep the broad strokes long enough so you build up some familiarity to eventually tear down. Whether it's seasons or a few episodes. Pretty much immediately Niso Isin weaponizes what was introduced in the first story to pull the rug from under you. It closely straddles the familiar, while still bringing that spirit and feeling that it got a whole deck of cards up its sleeve. Especially about the episodic nature. Monogatari is episodic and disjointed. Or that's what the author wants you to think. The different arcs are very episodic in nature, so you never really expect that much continuity. This arc is meant for Hanekawa and this one for Maoi. It doesn't really need to connect. There isn't a bigger picture. The selling point is the different characters and their dynamics. New characters appear out of nowhere, stuff happens off screen and you accept it as just something that happens in Monogatari. And then a certain arc comes along and smacks you. You are presented with a scattered timeline you'll gradually put together. Oh, so this arc fills this space and that scene is obviously way later. This might sound like a horrible experience, but trust me, you'll get more engaged when the show convinces you you're actually doing something instead of sitting on your fat ass. Of course it isn't a constant stream, every TV show separates itself in some kind of fashion, but at the end everything feels like a web instead of separate points. This is my warning for anyone who plans to watch Monogatari in chronological order. I will come for your kneecaps. I really want to establish this work as a masterclass in pretty much everything it's doing. It got into my top 10 anime, but there's one massive issue. The main character. Listen, I really want to love Araragi. He is actually really compelling. I see him through this series as someone who plays the part of a stereotypical hero. He wants to help everyone, even in the most unlikely of situations. But those shoes are too big for him to fill. He doesn't have the strength to back it up. Most of his fights are either buying time or using tricks to win. And he's also not emotionally resilient. He constantly stumbles and second guesses himself. While he grows through the series in confidence, this weakness still lingers. And I'm glad it does, because no matter how outmatched he is, he will always stand behind his values. He won't ever make the easier choice. He'll make the one that's right by him. Sometimes his stubbornness blows up in his face, but seeing him overcome all the insurmountable obstacles placed before him is so cathartic. And there's an ocean's depth more about him. But if you really wanna know, just watch the series, man. I just praised the absolute hell out of Araragi. So what could be the problem? Araragi is a pedo. Let's go Japan, another one for the bingo! Can my favorite pieces of media stop included incest and pedophilia? It reflects bad on my character. He's an incredible perv for the sake of comedy, which is probably my least favorite trope in anime, along with an egregious amount of fanservice. Bro's wearing the allegation as a badge of honor. And the community built up around Monogatari is also peculiar, and sometimes disturbing. At this point, I wanna stress a few things. I'm not coming into this convo with any kind of moral high ground. I myself am a pretty big degenerate, so I can't talk like some kind of an innocent soul trying to rid the world of this filth. As much as I dislike this part of Monogatari, it's still a part of Monogatari. The story literally wouldn't start without a panty shot. And I'm not here to vilify Nisoisin or the Monogatari fandom. I think it's easy to point fingers at individuals instead of the wider problem. The actual problem is society. Okay, I can't finish that sentence. The problem I have is with fanservice in general. Anime gets a really bad rap for being sexualized. Which I think is not fair at all, cause have you guys watched movies? Ever? So many movies are so horny. Unless it's like Avengers 27, The Great Shittening or something. Or Transformers 1, please go watch it. What is fair is being weirded out by, I wouldn't say softcore CP, but it's pretty close. No other country would make something. France. This is something that will just exist. If you look at it from a business perspective, you can market your product to a pretty sizable group that will enjoy it. And the anime community has gotten numb to it. So they won't really care. It's like... Anime will be anime. On the other hand, someone does care. The anime community has prepared bulletproof counter. Who is it hurting? Who is it hurting? Well, it's hurting us, the consumers. To explain why, I have to get into the reason why escapism in general is so effective. As the name suggests, you are escaping something. But more specifically, in a lot of cases, it's something you personally lack. I didn't really wanna do a hypothetical or point and laugh at a random person, so I'm gonna self-report quickly. In the last 2 months, some of the anime I watched are Love Chunibyo, Summer Wars, a Bunny Girl Senpai movie, Spice and Wolf, Alia sometimes hides her feelings in Russian, Makaine rewatched all of Kaguya-sama and reread the second half of the manga, and watched this piece of garbage, which I really enjoyed. Now, can you tell I have yet to even date? I'm 20 bro, why am I embarrassing myself online? Don't ask me about manga, man. I also literally just started watching Blue Box. I am a lost cause. Now, what's important to mention is that consuming escapism is completely fine. We do need escapism to not be miserable all the time. If you're in control of how much you consume, then all is good. I'm not. There are levels, I'd say. Being a normal human, being a hobbyist, the rot grows, aka I need professional help, and separation from reality, aka the rot consumes. And it's the last one that is the most damaging. I'm not saying that to feel better about myself. A lot of media and especially a lot of anime market themselves towards social outcasts. I was all around pretty social, so personally I could always tell when, for example, romance in anime was just straight up bullshit. Cause it is most of the time. But I was also antisocial enough to understand how one can become a complete outcast. Social interactions are kinda terrifying. Especially when you first meet someone. You don't know their personality, what they vibe with, and it can go so wrong. You say something you think is funny, and they give you a stare that feels like you're getting stabbed. You can feel their opinion of you just drop. Do I continue to talk with them after that? It can go 50-50. Either he starts vibing with me over time, or I cement myself as an absolute weirdo. So it's so much easier to go home and watch someone else do the socializing and having fun and stuff. Finding a GF? I might watch Horimiya instead. And despair. And that can get problematic. For people who end up as social outcasts for reasons in or outside their control, media can become the closest point of reference for how the world works. But fictional reality is obviously highly fabricated, depicting it either as much crueler than the average person can ever experience, or much more forgiving. A world where you'll be flogged no matter how completely uninteresting you are. And the same goes for depictions of sexuality and intimacy. In the anime community, it is fanservice on the lighter side of things and hentai on the more severe side. And sadly, these two sides are highly linked. Hell, most people's first experience with hentai is probably gonna be seeing some hot character in an anime and then think, you know, is there more of this? And in this part of the slippery slope, you have to be the most careful. No matter how social you are, long-term continuous exposure to fetishized content, aka addiction, I don't know why I was talking like a college professor, is gonna mess with your brain chemistry and how you view the world around you. If I'm gonna be honest, from my experience, I had, for example, a problem finding a real woman attractive. Also a lot of other self-image problems. But these can really differ from person to person. I don't think my problem was common amongst addicted people. This isn't something you can avoid without just treating your addiction. Your subconscious will be messed up and there isn't an easy way out of that. I'm no expert, but this isn't something exactly hard to research. Man, I'm so glad internet users warn about these dangers so they can prevent people from falling down this hole instead of posting this image to cope with their consumption. Just to clarify, most of this list isn't exactly wrong, but it's really twisting the facts. Increased self-confidence? Didn't the internet band together around their shared experience of feeling fucking miserable after nothing? Also, it's definitely not meant for people who jack off to 2B 24/7, which are the same people most likely to spread this image. For businesses, addiction is a tool for a higher profit. Conditioning a percentage of your consumers to constantly spend money on more and more products is highly beneficial and crucial for a thriving business. It's unreliable to bank on constant high quality to push sales. So showing the audience exactly what they wanna see is a way more enticing option. Whether it's a pair of giant titties, a watered down love story getting rid of all the uncomfortable parts, or an AI voice reading a probably fabricated story of a quiet kid standing up to and completely embarrassing a bully. It is here to keep us docile and consuming. For us, addiction is a liability that muddies our perception of reality. It's good for us then that creatives tell stories and not businesses. But not everything in a story is a pure authorial intent. People have to sell their stories to put food on the table. Marketing your creation isn't a sin. But we should be careful of the difference. Sure, as many argue, Monogatari definitely uses fanservice for characterization. But I don't think all of it was a stroke of genius to progress the story. A lot of it is just to make us degenerates happy. And also, even if it isn't intended, it still contributes to the same issues. What I'm trying to say is, enjoy what you want to enjoy, but be careful of the habits you're building. Think of how you engage with media from time to time. It's highly beneficial. And believe me, I'm also saying this to myself. Oh, also please avoid spreading validation of bad habits online. Also not a good thing, in general. And yeah, that's about all I wanted to say. If you made it here, please don't kill me, that shit hurts. Dying. I hope you enjoyed this video. Like and subscribe if you want to, not like I'm begging on my knees right now. I'll do a stream ranking the Monogatari arc soon, cause I still wanna talk about it a lot. So look out for that. And yeah, bye.